Well, slightly different surroundings today. I got a call from my boss, and there's a mess in West Virginia that requires my attention. So I'm at a hotel in lovely, lovely Toledo, Ohio. Hopefully, if all goes well, this whole escapade should only take about 24 hours and make me a cool $1,000, which will be nice, but still a little bit annoying. I think this is going to be my final Venus Project video. Legal Immigrant posted a comment on my last one that I went up, the one about the letter from Jacque Fresco, and he basically said, "Why are you still bothering with this?" And I understand where he's coming from. I mean, there's lots of big problems in this society, and the most threatening, the most overt ones are definitely the dominant ideologies, which I think are really similar, but they're different enough that they can be distinguished, and those are basically the liberals and the conservatives, or the Republicans or the Democrats, or the left and the right. And the Venus Project is pretty marginal. It is one of a cluster of fringe ideologies on the left, just as there's a cluster of fringe ideologies on the right. And there aren't that many adherents to it. If it wasn't for the Zeitgeist movies, probably none of us would be talking about it. So that shows right there the value of good media production right there, because Jacque Fresco has been working his entire life to perpetuate these ideas, and quite frankly, nobody had heard about them until this, and suddenly it became. It was a lure to everybody, I think, who has the right personality type to fall for that kind of stuff. But it's really not that different from any number of other leftist ideologies. Its connection to Marxism and the technate societies of the 20s and 30s is pretty obvious, pretty deep. I mean, the only thing that really distinguishes it is its current popularity and its media presence, in terms of its action, and the fact that it tends to view itself as radically different, whereas the others do not. Marxists and socialists and communists, maybe they disagree, sometimes even violently, but they tend to see a lot of overlap. Venus Project people tend to see their ideas as being, totally unprecedented, to the point where they're saying this has never been tried before. It's also kind of odd because they'll say it's totally unprecedented, but then they'll just they will argue in favor of socialism and against capitalism ad nauseum if given the opportunity. But I think it's important because there are a lot of people who fall for this stuff, and also because the bait that they're falling for is similar to the bait that basically everybody on the left falls for, to one degree or another. The mainstream Democrat, doesn't want to abolish the market completely, but they want it to be more controlled, to be more akin to the Venus Project system than your average person. So I think it's still relevant. Now the other topic, and it's been coming up repeatedly, is who is this actual Jacque Fresco YouTube channel? If you look at it, because some people have been kind of calling me out and saying, hey, it's not really Jacque, which if you look on the channel, it says this is not really Jacque. But if you look on the channel, everything on there is Jacque stuff, Jacque Fresco stuff. A lot of the material is older tape material from the 70s or 80s, if not before, a long time before Zeitgeist popularized the Venus Project. So whoever this is has access, and the kind of people who would have that sort of material are people who would be close to Jacque Fresco. The other thing is I think that channel has 12 or 13,000 subscribers, so, and is actively promoting the Venus Project. They're posting videos, and any videos that come up that that contradict or attack the Venus Project, that YouTube user, whoever that person is, will show up. Like I said, they'll show up on my videos within a day, and I'll put a tag that will say Jacque Fresco, but I don't send them a message. But they come by. It takes less than 24 hours. After I posted that letter from Jacque Fresco, it took him about, whoever it is, about I think it took him 20 hours to start commenting, and that's pretty normal. So this is someone who is full-time, apparently, promoting the Venus Project via this YouTube channel. Now, interestingly enough, about a day after I posted that, I got an email from somebody claiming to be an insider, a former Venus Project person. I asked this person some follow-up questions. I got some answers. I'm just going to qualify this as I can't prove that this person is correct, but the story that this person, I don't know if it's a he or a she, tells makes perfect sense to me. So I am going to go ahead and read this email, omitting whoever it is asked to be anonymous, so I'm not going to use their username. But it says, hey, I used to be a higher-ranking TVP supporter. I'm not anymore, but I have inside information. And then it says, I'd like to keep this source anonymous. He says, this is a part of a message from the Linguistic Team Skype group conversation history by Ray/G-Man, who is the head of the Linguistic Team International, that is TVP and TZM, I suppose that means the Zeitgeist Movement, approved official group that translate TVP/TZM/RBE materials into various languages. This person's profile indicates that they are from a foreign country. Of course, you can put any profile name or country of origin you want. Then it has the message surrounded by stars. I'm assuming that means it's a quote. Ray/G-Man. It gives the YouTube address to the Jacque Fresco YouTube channel. Is an official TVP YT channel. It belongs to Nathaniel Dinwiddie. That's Dinwiddie. But I also have owner access. Perhaps also Joe. So Ray, G-Man, and Dinwiddie. Then the person who sent me the message goes on. So it's not Jacque Fresco, but if Joe Holt, who I guess is who Ray G-Man is, he doesn't say that, has access to it, he lives with Jacque Fresco and Roxanne. Roxanne's kind of like the woman who's always carting that corpse around. Lives with them in Venus, Florida. And then he gave me links to their YouTubes, or their Facebook profiles. So Dinwiddie, Joel Holt, and Ray G-Man RBE. This is his name on YouTube. Now, so I can't prove this. You know, I asked this guy some follow-up questions, and he did respond. You know, I basically asked him what happened if you were a former TVP supporter. Why aren't you now? He said that they were all talking about science, so he figured he should learn about it. And as he did, he's learned about science and he learned about economics, and he realized they don't know what they're talking about. He said, I asked him how he came across my video, and he said that he came across it on Jim Jesus' Facebook page. Jim Jesus, subscriber of mine, who has posted all of my Venus Project videos on his website, or on his YouTube channel. He posted the entire text of the letter in his blog if you want to read the entire letter. A lot of you asked for it, and I sent it to you if you want to read. If you didn't do that, if you look on the letter from Jacque Fresco, in the description there is a link to his blog that has the entirety of the letter. And he said he posted on his Facebook. I'm not friends with Jim Jesus on Facebook. In my entire life, I've never seen any of my videos ever posted on Facebook by anybody, which, if you are friends with me on Facebook, please don't do that, because Facebook identity for me does not know YouTube identity for me, and I just assume keep it that way. For work and family reasons. I think my family would just about have a hissy fit if they found out, not just that I'm gay, but that I'm like an anarchist on YouTube, and they'd probably think the government was going to kill me for doing something like this. They'd overreact, so I'd appreciate it if... I don't need to say it, though, because it's never really happened. Anyway, he said he saw it there, so he approached me. This guy's story sounds plausible, but I can't prove it. You know, whoever this person is, and Anarcho-Pack said you shouldn't call it Jacque Fresco. Well, who the fuck am I supposed to call it? The name of the YouTube channel is Jacque Fresco. It's like I shouldn't call you Anarcho-Pack because your name's not really Anarcho-Pack. How else should I address you? This person is probably not Jacque Fresco, but it's somebody who is either very close to him or at the very least highly interested in promoting the Venus Project. One commenter said, "There's no way it's Jacque. It's probably the government." But I don't see how what they're doing is any way attempting to discredit the Venus Project at all. It's doing everything in its power, whoever it is, to promote the Venus Project. And I mean, when I read the letter, that to me is somebody who honestly understands the Venus Project, and at the same time is doing everything that they can to possibly defend it. I wanted to read this little comment where I really rarely see someone lose a debate so terribly than was on that last debate, and I want to mention it because if this is going to be my final Venus Project video, and I hope that it is, I think I should point this out. Let's see. Click on this. Turn the sound off. I mean, this basically this I think it's 4 comments in a row. It kind of, to me, it summarizes the entire argument for the Venus Project. You know, after all this time, it's finally been kind of whittled down to, you know, the absolute basics. Let's see. Oh man, there's a lot of comments on this one. Should have figured this out before, but oh well. Let's see. There's Jim Jesus. Sorry about this. Illegal immigrant complaining. Okay. Here we go. So this is the initial comment posted by the YouTube user Jacque Fresco, likely a lead advocate or acolyte, probably not Jacque himself. This took about 20 hours to show up on the thing after the video was posted. It says, lots of misunderstanding, mainly due to runaway associations. To articulate a new metric of account would require a book. Besides, they are partly proprietary. So basically, in his letter, he made constant references to how the Venus Project will solve the calculation problem. Basically, computers will do it, input will do it, and the only way that's possible is if you have a universal, objective metric by which to measure human needs, values, desires against goods and services. And there is no known metric today, none at all. Money isn't even a metric, it's just a medium of exchange. The price represents the aggregation of all the subjective exchanges, mutually beneficial two-party exchanges in the economy, and the price, you know, the market price then allows calculation to occur. Since they want to abolish private property, money, and prices, how they're going to make calculations then becomes a very pertinent question. And to the credit of whoever this Jacque Fresco is, they are aware of that. They acknowledge that is something that needs to be solved, which is more than could be said for most Venus Project people who just kind of like to say, oh, it's a whole different paradigm, so we don't have to answer questions like how it's going to work. So that's their first comment. Okay. An article pack gave me some shit for this next comment, but I'm frustrated with these people, whoever this is. So I said, you're 96, and first of all, it would require a book. Okay, the Venus Project is trying to get itself started. If they have this information, they should make it available. And also, I find that very insulting to say that since it would require a book, he doesn't have to explain. I'm not at home right now, but if you notice, all my videos are take place in front of a bookshelf, and that's just one of my bookshelves. All right, I'm capable of reading a book, even a very large book, and even if it's not me, you know, that if you have already figured this information out, if you have a system that works, why isn't it posted on any of the websites? You know, if it were, then you would be able to just forward to me like, here's the article that explains what this new metric is. And maybe it's a long article. I can accept. You should be able to summarize it pretty quick, but I can appreciate the possibility that such a metric would require a lot of elaboration. And fine, give me the link to the 20, 30, 100 page article that makes it, that explains it. If it's vitally necessary, which it is, if it's an absolute necessity for your system to work, then you should have worked it out. And if you have worked it out, then you should put it forward so that we can examine it. But to just kind of say it's too complicated, no. So my response basically sums that up. I said, you're 96. That would be assuming this is Jacque Fresco, which an Anarcho-Pack thinks is inappropriate, but what else am I supposed to call this person? And you haven't written this book yet, even though it is absolutely required for your system to work. If you already have it figured out, lay it out. If not, you're just assuming that you can do it. Did you discover a scientific basis for claiming collective ownership of anything? That was another, it's a separate point, but they want to dismiss property as unscientific and then say collective ownership of everything is assumed. Okay. If so, please provide it. If not, can we dismiss the claim as unscientific? You can write me a snide 5-page letter, but as to the absolutely essential specifics of your system, you cannot be bothered. What a joke. So, it's interesting that whoever this person is will come forward and say, it would take a book, so I'm not going to tell you, but I mean the number of comments that they placed just on my videos, let alone all the other videos they placed, are probably longer than a book. They sent me what was basically a 7.5-page letter, just me, and that letter is not a standard issue letter. That's not like the kind of letter you would get if you write President Obama. You write President Obama, you're going to get this letter back that is just typecast to respond to everything. The letter they sent me was not like that. The letter that they sent me was, and to their credit, specifically responding to points that I had made. So they have the time to do that, but then this, I mean, if they're so interested in making their system work, you'd think that they would spend the time to really think it out. Like, I believe in an anarcho-capitalist society. Anarcho-capitalists have written books. You know how many books there are on anarcho-capitalist law, legal theory? There's probably like 5 or 6 major books just about that. There's books about the roads. There's books about defense. There's anarcho-capitalists have been working on this, like, as long as there's been anarcho-capitalism. They've been trying to address every single conceivable facet of society that they can. And they've published on it for us to critique, for us to read, for us to learn from. This metric is absolutely 100% required for the Venus Project to even hypothetically be feasible. So, Jacque Fresco is 96 years old. Maybe if he spent less time trying to promote and beg for money, he might have been able to figure this out yet. But apparently he hasn't. Apparently whoever this YouTube channel hasn't. All the millions or thousands of Venus Project, adherents around the world, they don't have a solution to this. If they did, why isn't anyone referring me to it? Okay, so then he responds to this. There are priorities that supersede discourse. So this is a way to not answer. It's a pretty lame excuse if you ask me. If the Venus Project was about to be launched tomorrow, I can understand how they might have other things on their mind. However, it would be very, very disconcerting if indeed they were about to launch tomorrow and they didn't have an answer to this. This is kind of like someone who's saying they're going to build the Starship Enterprise. They're marshaling all the resources of the world to build the Starship Enterprise, and they don't have a way to make a warp drive or a transporter or any way to make the ship actually fly. They can waste as many resources as they like trying to build something that they think is going to look like the Starship Enterprise, but if they don't have a feasible means to give it a warp drive or whatever other science fiction, power plant, engine, whatever that it has, then it's a waste of time and it's foolhardy to begin construction. So if you don't have this metric, you're dead in the water. There's no point to take another step until you figure this out. Second, this is clearly not the case because Jacque Fresco here, whoever that is engaging in discourse all the time, every day. They're engaged with just little old me every time I make a video. and anyone else who makes a video. They get followed around by other Venus Project people, because whenever he comments on my videos, I'll get a slew of comments from supporters who are basically trending or following his every move. So he attempts discourse, and then when you say, hey, okay, put up or shut up, then suddenly he doesn't want to have discourse anymore. Okay. And then, I don't know why I'm summarizing, because my next comment says this as well. Right, because TVB is about to launch. Never going to happen, because not near enough people buy the Marxist-flavored shit you shovel. And they never will if you can't answer basic questions. Your entire system, as you outlined and as implied, would require an objective metric to measure goods and services against human desires. You don't have one. If you did, you'd provide me before suddenly getting other, quote, priorities and to run off. All you do is troll YouTube and flee when your BS is call out. Okay, then he gets downright fucking insulting here. As if you would understand the description. Are you an engineer? Okay, so no, I am not an engineer. And as far as I'm aware, no university in the world offers degrees in engineering all human society, which is what the Venus Project is talking about. The Venus Project is not talking about engineering, you know, a new train or a new computer. They're talking about engineering the entire human society on the entire planet. Nobody offers degrees in that. Nobody has a resume that would justify their doing that. Nobody has experience doing that. Certainly not Jacque Fresco. I mean, he argues that he should, but there's no evidence that he's actually capable of that. Second, this is just pure argument from authority. You know, who cares if I could understand it? If they have a solution to this problem, they should put it forward, and that maybe other people will understand it. You know, I'm not saying my reading comprehension is so awesome that I'm going to understand everything you might read. There's such a thing as jargon, and there's a good chance that if it is really technical, I won't understand it. But lots of other people will. I have engineers who watch my channel, so why don't you let them read it? Why don't you let anybody read it? And again, I don't understand what the basis for. Basically, they're saying I'm so smart that you wouldn't get it. But it's really just kind of a basically they don't have an answer, so they're just going to throw an insult, which is pretty common. Venus projects. You're in the wrong paradigm. You're just stuck in the status quo. That sort of ad hominem. So, I've kind of responded back, and then that was it. Jacque Fresco has not responded back. He certainly has not forwarded me any kind of objective metric. If he had one, he's had a couple days now to send it to me, which means he doesn't have one. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point in the future he tried to send me something and say, hey, this is it. But I don't have much expectation, because honestly, this isn't a new idea. I mean, socialists and Marxist thinkers, really smart people, have been spending more than 100 years trying to crack this nut. I mean, they really have. And their failures have been both theoretical and practical. And I mean, honestly, millions of people have died on accident because of their failure to do this. I'd be impressed if they could. I really would. But I don't see that kind of intellect here. I see basically someone who's imagining a future society that they can't realize, and getting smug and petty when people point out that they don't have a warp drive, that they don't have Heisenberg compensators or transporters, and they don't have an objective universal metric by which to measure human wants and desires against physical goods and services, which you absolutely have to do if you're going to calculate without prices. So, whoever this person is, if it's one of his chief acolytes, or maybe if it's not, maybe it's just a random YouTuber who somehow got a hold of a whole bunch of antiquated VHS tapes of Jacque Fresco on small-time PBS stations or whatever else is on. I mean, I'll admit I have not actually literally watched all their videos. I have to prioritize to reading things. I don't like to read fiction, so very often, so I can't spend a lot of time watching stuff like that. If they can't even rise to the occasion to offer a valid argument, I don't see why I should entertain, the intricacies of their ideology. I know a lot of people, will criticize libertarians, sometimes justly, and they'll say, okay, well, Have you ever read Keynes? Uh, no, although I think I am going to read Keynes. But the idea is you can't really refute it if you haven't really studied it. But I would counter that we all have limited time, and if these arguments for this or that ideology don't seem particularly valid or justifiable, I don't think you can justify just pouring more time into trying to divulge. And that'd be like saying, how do you know that the Hindu, the Mahabharata or the Rig Veda or whatever, the Hindu uh, polytheism, with all their gods, how do you know that's false? I mean, it just seems like purely, fantastic from my point of view. But someone could say, well, have you read the Rig Veda? Have you read the Mahabharata? Are you really, really, have you really studied uh, Dravidic? Can you read Sanskrit? And my answer to all that is no. And so they could say, so you can't really say that it's refuted. I just think that I think people take that argument too far. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea to read. I'm just saying I think it's an invalid critique that some people like to use too much, and that's certainly the case here. Like, have I studied all the works of Jacque Fresco? No, and I don't see any reason that he's such a great thinker that I should. And Jacque Fresco is talking about old ideas that have been around a long time, ideas that he was exposed to when he was younger, that he adopted, and that became, those are his ideas, this Marxist technate society of the 30s, of which there were many. That's what he believes in, and he has the gall to think that he's being really, really original and smug enough to think this all came from his idea. But you just read the comments, read the letters. These guys are talking Marxism, even the ideas of how you have capitalism first, and that leads to the TVP, and it's just a matter of production, and we can, we're post-scarcity, like we haven't been hearing that forever, and really, there's nothing original other than the fact that they have such a strong emphasis on conceptual art. All the imagery, which oh, that's kind of neat. That's like something maybe Ralph McQuarrie would draw to design a set for Star Wars or something, but it's not a compelling argument in favor of a social system. But other than that, I don't see how anything's unique about the Venus Project. I don't see how Jacque Fresco is a unique thinker. The stuff that he says, the babble that comes out of his mouth, it's incoherent. Like, it doesn't form a consistent ideology. It's a whole bunch of analogies and anecdotes, and some of the stuff isn't. I'm not to say everything he ever says is wrong, but it's not very much of it is original. And yet, people think this guy is like the second coming. I think mostly that's because they watch the or they watch Zeitgeist. They think that, oh, here's this utopian society, and then Jacque Fresco is kind of presented as the Messiah figure in this. Although there's a problem because Peter Joseph likes to present himself as a Messiah figure. So they hear this guy talking about a religion that they've already accepted, and it doesn't really matter what he says. They're in awe, and they're not thinking. I mean, if you were thinking, you'd be like, oh, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense, and well, that's an assumption, and any number of other objections that any thinking person, should come to mind. But a lot of people aren't thinking people; they're feeling people, and it just feels good to imagine that this is true. And then when someone comes out and starts poking holes in your fucking dream, you get indignant about it. But I'm sorry, there's nothing else we can do. So I feel like I'm pretty much, there's nothing more to be said. I mean, eventually we whittle it down to them not being able to answer, and then just making smug, well, you're just not smart enough. If I'm such a fucking idiot loser, why are you wasting time trying to convince me? And why why can't you answer my questions? I'm such a moron that when I ask you a question, you don't have an answer other than to say I'm too smart. Like, that isn't like the worst kind of tactic of a fucking bureaucrat public school teacher. You know, oh, I don't have to answer that. You're just being a bad student for questioning my authority. Yeah, real mature. Whoever you are, whoever you pretend to be, your ideas are completely bankrupt. They're going nowhere. Uh, I've done what I can to make sure that it stays that way. Although, like legal immigrants, correct. I don't think it's a huge issue. Uh, you are a fringe, unoriginal cult, and it is a cult. Uh, you know, someone commented like, "Well, a cult is anyone who has shared beliefs," and so the United States is a cult, and Christianity is a cult, and uh, I said, "Well, I would add some other variables like a religious faith in things, like an objective metric which they don't have but they assume will exist, like a religious faith that everybody will give over their resources. I mean, honestly, unless every single person voluntarily gives their resources over to the Venus Project, the Venus Project will not work. So I think it's a stupid assumption to think everyone's going to give their resources over. But then these people are like, no, no, there won't be any coercion, and we'll have the Venus Project. Like, no, you're going to have to use coercion because there's no way everyone's going to give you your resources. So they have faith. They have faith in a lot of things. Uh, Unjustifiable faith. You know, there's no reason to assume. We can assume technology is going to grow, but like we just can't set. We can't predicate a system on developments that we have no way of even anticipating when or if or how they will. It's like saying my society is going to be based on Star Trek. Well, when is that going to happen? I have no idea. Well, that's not exactly convincing. So I think Jacque Fresco, whoever he is a pathetic waste of human life who has contributed nothing to the battle of ideas or the furtherance of society. Um, the ideas that he talks about, not only are they completely all wrong, he hasn't even contributed them because they've all been around for like literally 150 years. So it's, in addition to being completely false, it's unoriginal. So the net contribution is nothing, which is pretty sad for somebody who's lived their whole life, pioneering for something. Uh, and yet, I mean, but I don't know, maybe it's just because he wants money. I mean, it could be he's just a shyster. And this whole thing is an excuse to get, the simple-minded to support him. Because he obviously has not spent the groundwork to actually figure out how it's going to work. Otherwise, they would have answers to these simple questions. So I think that's going to be it for now. 32 minutes, that's not bad. I hope it uploads in this hotel, but their Wi-Fi looks pretty good, so we'll see. All right. Oh, shit. This smart PC cleaner's stepping up. All right. Talk to you later.